Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Tonight is the March 16th, 2023 Environmental Conservation Board meeting. We have an agenda this evening with 3 items on it. We're going to follow it in that order. Top of the list, we are opening a public hearing. I'd like to entertain a motion for opening the public hearing for Bullet Hole Farms Incorporated, address 360 Bullet Hole Road, tax map 53.17-1-39 for a tree harvesting permit.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the public hearing is open. If anyone would like to come up and speak on this, please come up and address the board here. Please come up and state your name as well as your relation, like if you're in the town, whether you live in the town. Your address. We'll allow, since there's a good number of people here, we'll allow 3 minutes per person to come up and address the board. If you have specific questions or comments that you would like answered by the applicant, please state that. We'll take a note of that. I'm going to give a chance at the very end for the applicant for this tree harvesting permit to address any of the comments from the public. Would anyone like to come up?
Yes. My name's Keith Cox. I live at 27 Nicholas Way in Mahopac, New York, 10541. So I see from the public hearing that 739 trees are coming down. And when I saw this, my first response was that's a lot of trees. So I guess the first question I have for the applicant is how is he even going to do that? I go down in that area a lot, and there's no road. So are they planning to build a road to go in to take these trees out? So that's one. Number 2, do we know after they remove all these trees what they're planning to do? So that's question number 2. And number 3, there's just the concern, a lot of us border that property. We have wells there. There's going to be a lot of construction, a lot of noise. So that's a concern that some of us have as well.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Louis Riccelli. I'm at 23 Nicholas Way. We are directly abutting the Bullet Hole Farms. My question is, they're estimating the number of trees, I guess 14 trees per acre. Who's going to monitor that? How do we know it's 14 trees versus 20 or 25 trees? How do we determine that? And I mean, I see that hardwood trees ranging from 10-inch diameter. What does that mean? What is a 10-inch diameter? How wide is that trunk of the tree going to really be?
I can address some of these general questions as well as they come along. So when forestry operations are conducted, it's at breast height. They measure around the circumference of the tree itself, and there are best practices on what trees you can, like the size of them at breast height, that you can cut down. There's a number of best practices that actually I'll ask the applicant to just address to the public this evening for some of these general concerns as well as for monitoring. There is stipulations in this specific application for professional forestry services to be monitoring this. There's specific dates that this needs to be done in, and specific times during the day to address noise complaints as well as traffic safety. The applicant has reached out to and gotten approval from the highway department as well in order to ensure that trucks that are on that road aren't going to destroy the road. There's a large road bond that has been put in place in order to ensure the safety and construction of and integrity of the road that is there, as well as the number of truckloads are generally predetermined, although that it depends on whether or not they get all the trees that they expected to get. Trees are also marked prior to being taken down and inspected by a professional forester. In 2 different places, each tree is marked. both so when you take it down, they know the tree, the log itself, but also the stump. So this way it's clear which ones were taken and that they were marked prior to being taken down. So there's a due diligence both before and after.
Before and after, right. And they will specifically state the hours, the days and times that this logging or forestry, whatever you want to call it, is going to happen?
Yes, that was in the,
Because I don't
Project
recall
plan.
seeing it in what was shared to us.
yeah, my apologies. Per our code, actually, there are specific times that it can be done. I don't believe it's before 9 AM, I think is part of it. I can circle back on that towards the end of this. It's definitely a stipulation in our code that not after, I believe it's not after 8 PM and not before 9 AM is when they can do any operations.
Okay.
And that's
Not
per our
after
code.
8 PM, I mean, there's
8 AM.
8 AM,
You
is
mean
it?
8 AM?
Did I? No, 9 AM, 8 PM.
9
not
AM to
Okay.
8 PM?
I believe that's it. I can.
So
I
while
will
we're
have
trying to
get
have
back
our
on that.
dinners peacefully at our home, we can hear this going on? Is that what we're saying?
Pardon me?
So if we're having dinner at like 6, 7 PM, this could, logging or forestry can be going on?
It's 20 feet from all roadways, permit. 8 AM to 6 PM, except not on Sundays. Yes, per our code,
It's more likely.
no harvesting or cutting operations or removal of products shall take place between the hours of 6 PM and 8 AM, and not on Sundays.
Not on Sundays. So on Saturdays, it could
Yes.
happen?
Yes.
Okay.
We've also asked the applicant to be cognizant of school bus routes, and that's something that he has indicated during school bus hours. That's generally something that we've asked before to be very careful about, and flagging as well. So if there's a flagger, that there should be a flagger out whenever a truck is incoming or outgoing.
Right. But in regards to the Saturday, I mean, a lot of us will have pre-planned parties and stuff. We can be outside. I mean, I would think that, Monday through Friday should be enough time for them to do this. But, on the weekends, most of us work, like to come home and enjoy some peaceful time there, not having to deal with, 700 or so trees being taken down and all the noise and commotion that's going to, cause.
Of course, noted as a concern that we can have the applicant address.
Right. In terms of the buffer, like from our properties at Nicholas Way to, where's the buffer going to be? Is it from bullet holes? I'm trying to understand where the buffer of the trees, because the sun sets behind our homes. We get it just beats down on us. If they're going to take down some of those mature trees that are, not abutting our property lines, because that seemed to have been some type of farm area, and it's mostly thickets and weeds and vines, that's going to then cause us all this sun beating down in the afternoons. I mean, during the winter, it's not a concern, but as we get now into spring and summer and the trees get the leaves, we do enjoy that relief, from the summer, where some of those trees, depending on where the buffer is going to fall on.
I will, once we give the applicant an opportunity to speak, I'll let him speak on the buffer zones and how he's mitigating both sound and noise and visual pollution.
Okay. And then my last question is the frequency of this. Is this going to be just a one-time event, or how often or not often will this happen?
So as of right now, this application is for a single round of tree cutting for the specific amount of trees listed here, as well as in the maps, the areas, there's specific areas in this property that are targeted for this timber harvest. If this applicant came before us again in the future for other ones, we judge each one separately. Although I have some questions for the applicant myself on whether or not this property is enrolled in any of the forestry programs within New York State. But that's a separate conversation we'll have a little bit later.
Right, okay. And then this application is just for the forestry of the trees. It's got nothing to do with what will ultimately happen with that property after this happens, is that?
That's correct. It has been brought to the board's attention that and there's currently some outstanding communications between this board and other administrative bodies within the town about the potential development or use of this property in other endeavors outside of the tree harvesting application that's before us, and that's something that the applicant will have to address as well.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sharon Jaffe. I live at 54 Stonewall Farm Road, 10541. I just kind of wanted to reiterate everyone else's concerns, and, you know, we're
Could you
concerned
speak up
that
a little?
we were told when we moved in that there were wetlands behind us. And I know they said that the only animals that are going to be affected are bats, but I know we get deer, fox, and a lot of birds. That is a concern. And also the noise and the pollution by cutting down, you know, trees.
Absolutely, and I appreciate your concern as well. We share that concern on the Environmental Conservation Board as well. I will note that the only wetland that is impacted currently by this tree harvesting application, timber harvest application, is a stream that runs through part of the property. And we have, both this board and the DEC, am I correct on that? Is it the DEC?
I think it was DEC.
DEC have taken great pains to ensure that proper management practices are held with a minimally invasive stream crossing that will be removed after the tree harvesting is complete and removed and remediated afterwards.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come up and speak on this application?
Daniel McGinn, I'm a resident of Mahopac. Just not to harp on anything that's already been said, but to touch on another point of contention and concern is the consideration that the property itself has tax arrears of $249,000 since 2013, and I think it would be irresponsible of the town as tax-paying member to have that burden be outstanding in consideration that the permit be granted and a consideration be put on the permit that be satisfied prior to any further proceedings be made for a non-necessity permit. And what the intention is for them going forward if the permit is granted, with the harvesting for them to financially benefit while not having filled their tax obligation for that many years. I think it would be irresponsible on not yourself as your board, but the town, without further consideration in that circumstance. That's all I have, so.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you bringing that to the board's attention as well. It is something that we are absolutely considering as well with this application, although I want to point out a couple of things with our charge of this board itself. As the Environmental Conservation Board of the town of Carmel, we are bound by Carmel code. As of right now, this property is in good tax standing with the town of Carmel. However, it is fully understood that there are outstanding taxes for this property with other jurisdictions.
Understanding it's complicated and that the property has changed hands and names, but there is still an outstanding burden that us as taxpayers in good standing have to take into consideration, that it hasn't been satisfied since 2013, and as of the assessor's office today, that the January bill, from my understanding, has not been satisfied, as well as any of the previous outstanding payments.
Got it.
So
Appreciate
take that into
it. Duly
consideration.
noted as a main concern and one that's also on our docket.
Understood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Any comments from the board before I ask the applicant to come up?
No.
All right. Would you like to come up and address some of the concerns that you've heard this evening? And if you'd like a rundown, I can do a couple of them, but I'm sure a general overview of the project and some of the abatement things that you've put in place already will arrest some of those.
Okay. My name is Chris Prentice, forester for Lower Hudson Forestry Services, representing Bullet Hole Farms. As the board said, we're looking for a timber harvesting permit for 360 Bullet Hole Road. What we're proposing is to remove 739 hardwood trees off of 52 acres, which equates to about 14 trees per acre. We've gotten approval from the DEP, the DEC. We've gone through the State Historic Preservation Office regarding historical and archaeological sites. They were approved, and we're here at the public hearing to address some of the concerns of the public. 739 trees, 14 trees per acre. It sounds like a lot, but a typical hardwood forest in this area has anywhere between 75 and approximately 125 trees per acre. So taking 14 trees per acre, you're looking at removing less than 15% of the standing trees. The question that was brought up was how is this going to be monitored? Trees were marked by myself with tree marking paint. The town does have a professional forester that they have contracted for monitoring this project. So that forester has already done a pre-harvest inspection. He also will inspect during the harvest and at the end to make sure everything is done correctly. To access the timber, there won't actually be any construction. Timber is usually taken out with skidders, and a skidder is essentially a large tractor, if you will, and they just make a trail through the woods. They don't actually excavate, they don't take the stumps out or anything like that. When they're done, that trail is then smoothed off, and in a couple years it regrows trees, shrubs, things of that nature. In terms of the question about the wells, harvesting won't affect groundwater from deep water wells. If there was a surface body of water that you were taking drinking water or something from, then there could be a concern. The wetland buffer area, as per the town's code, there's no harvesting or machinery in the wetland, nor is there any harvesting machinery in a 100-foot buffer around the wetland. So in terms of affecting the wetland or water quality, that's mitigated through that buffer, as well as the use of forestry best management practices from the state of New York. The question about buffers, so I think the question came from somebody who lives on Nicholas Way. So Nicholas Way, if I'm correct, is the cul-de-sac on the east side, correct? So the old brush fields behind you will not be touched, and then there's the wetland in between the brush fields and where the harvest is going to be. So the closest any trees to be cut from the line off of Nicholas Way, if you live at the far north end of Nicholas Way, you're over 600 feet. If you live at the southern end of Nicholas Way, you're almost 1,200 feet. So it won't affect your shade, it won't affect your sun. It's almost a quarter mile from the southern end. And then, like I say, nothing is to be touched in the wetlands, nor in those old brush fields, nor in the 100-foot buffer off of the wetlands. How often does logging happen? It really just depends. Typically, on a project like this, you likely won't come back for anywhere between 8 to 10 years minimum, but probably more like a 15-year rotation. So that's typically the way it's done in this part of New York. What's going to happen afterwards is the big question. You know, this property had gone through portions of the planning board, I believe back in 2006 and 7, for a 13-lot subdivision. The current owner has no plans to develop it, at least in a building or residential. There was discussions of starting the farm again on the east side where the old brush fields are, but currently there is no plans to do any development. But as the board stated, whatever plans 2 or 3 years down the line, they have to come back through planning board, back through environmental conservation board, and it's considered a separate action anyway. There was a question about wildlife. You know, like I say, the brush fields will be left, the wetlands are left, the buffers are left. The areas that are cut actually are more attractive to wildlife because now you're getting new growth. So you actually will see different kinds of bird species in a harvest area that you won't normally see in an uncut area. The deer will still be there. They're definitely going to be happy at all the new growth. You know, fox, anything else that you see currently, you're still going to see. So that's not really something that's going to be affected by the harvest. I think I hit on everything.
I had if the board has any questions, we can ask that right now as well. One of my questions was, is this property or this part of the property enrolled in the 480A?
No, it is not.
It's not, okay. Because I noticed that there was some discussion about the, getting funding through the Watershed Agriculture Council.
Correct. So
Yeah.
the funding through Watershed Agricultural Council is available to landowners who are in the New York City watershed. You don't have to be in 480A to apply for the funding. You do have to be in 480A to apply for a certain portion of it, but for timber harvesting activities, you do not need to be in 480A. They will allow landowners to apply for it, and that funding goes towards skid trail remediation, erosion control activities, things of that nature.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Do you have any idea on the dates and the hours of the logging operations will continue?
Well, in terms of dates, it really is weather dependent. I would imagine that it would probably start sometime in end of April, beginning of May, if the ground is dry. You know, and then like it had been brought up before, as per the code, you know, hours of operation are noted 8 to 6, Monday through Saturdays, no Sundays or legal holidays. You know, I'm willing to work with the public, and you know, if Saturdays is really a big issue, then you know, I'm fine with doing Monday through Friday and doing it 8 to 6. So you know, if that would appease the board and the public, I don't have any issue with that.
Okay. Do you have any questions then? No. I have. Did you have a chance to read through the Forester's report?
Yes.
Okay, there were two recommendations that were coming from him. For the record, the two recommendations coming from Doug Ramey, the professional forester, are the board, through their inspector, will approve the start up of project based on existing ground conditions, as you kind of just indicated. However, this is done through the town forester. The inspector could temporarily stop the project in the case of poor weather and/or ground conditions. And the second recommendation here from the forester is the board's inspector would perform certain inspections for compliance with the permit during operations. These periodic inspections to confirm the landing area, the logging road layout, construction and maintenance, as well as ground and weather conditions. and a final inspection to confirm that the road grading, landing reclamation, and erosion control has been properly done and removed.
Right.
Are you okay with both of those recommendations from Forrester?
Yep. And there will also be a inspection by the DEC after the bridge is removed as part of the Article 24 permit.
Excellent. Yeah, I did note that there were an extensive list of stipulations for the Article 24 permit.
Yep.
Okay, any other comments? I'd like to entertain, oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, another question. Do you anticipate multiple logging trucks going through the area per day, or will it be one load per day going through?
Typically one load per day. I mean, there may be some rare occasions where it's two, but it's typically one per day. Some days, none.
Would you be able to route that around the school dismissal and arrival hours? That's in the neighborhood, the Austin Road School?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So, I mean, in other towns, what I've done is when the last school bus comes, usually 8:45, 9 o'clock or something like that, and then when it comes again in, say, 2:30, just have trucking in between those times.
I think that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, that'd be good, yeah.
All right. I'd like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. All right, so the public hearing has been closed. As I mentioned before, there are a number of outstanding communications currently and inquiries regarding this specific application. Per our code, after a public hearing for this, we have 45 days to act on this, otherwise it's granted de facto. So there will be a upcoming meeting, either in the next 1 or 2 meetings, in order for us to grant this permit. If there are any other comments from the public, you're welcome to submit that in writing to our file. You can send that to the engineering department or to Rose Rambetta, who is the board's secretary, and that can be added to our file as well to address. The comments that are on here that were made this evening are on the record. We do transcripts of all of our meetings. Any comments that you provided will be reviewed again, and we actually vote on approving the minutes for all of these meetings. Your comments will be addressed, as the applicant has indicated, with any revisions that we need to have for this in order to grant the permit itself. So I want to thank everybody this evening for coming and voicing your concerns, and that's the end of our public hearing. So you're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting. We have a few other very exciting agenda items, but you're also welcome to leave. Of course. I mean, we're talking about a dam tonight too, so. All right, let me have the papers back. Thank you, thank you. Oh, it cleared out. All right, we are now moving on to item number 2 on our list. This is for the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, West Branch Auxiliary Dam, address 34 Drewville Road, tax map 65-1-5, site plan. This was a planning board referral. Please, if you don't mind stating your name.
Sure. My name is Paul Costa. I'm with New York City DEP's Bureau of Engineering, Design, and Construction. I'm here with Linda Singh. She's a Deputy Portfolio Manager with DEP. And Eric Leclerc is the DEP's consultant with CDM Smith.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. Pass this out. Oh, we need some additional information. Great. Not a problem. Thank you. Let me pass this to you over there, and I got one myself. If anybody would like to see the, I think the SWIP is in here. Yes, and the actual ECB, our ECB improvement plan that they put in here is also in here. Just let me know if you need to take a look at that. Mr. Costa, so if you wouldn't mind walking us through the comments that you provided to us with regards to the ECB comments that we made last time.
Yes, I mean, we submitted a response to comments. We basically agreed to incorporate all the comments and address all the concerns. There's two items that Eric's going to cover. One's with regard to wetlands, and then one thing we want to confirm about the staking out of the borders, the buffers of the wetlands. So Eric's going to address two items.
Go ahead. I think someone just got locked out. He's being a hero right now.
So as I noted, Eric will cover two items, and then we'll answer more questions.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. So a couple of the items that the board had asked about in the last meeting, one of them was in relevance to the wetland that's being removed. And there was a question about mitigation and response from DEC in regards to that. So we provided a copy of the DEC stipulations and permit. The DEC was silent on the wetland itself in its permit. There was no request for mitigation. We were able to confirm that as we talked about in the previous meeting. The documents that I provided to you tonight, one of them is a wetland delineation report that was prepared for this project a number of years ago. It talks about the 3 different wetlands, how they're characterized and what they consist of. The one in question is what is labeled as Wetland 1 or Basin 1. The findings of that delineation and investigation of that particular wet area determined that it was essentially doesn't function as a wetland. The wet area where it's located is underlain by stone rubble. So there's essentially a thin layer, 5 to 6 inches of soil on top of that stone layer. And because it is underlain by that stone, it's considered an upland area and doesn't essentially qualify as a jurisdictional wetland. So it's essentially labeled as a basin and whatnot. And it's our opinion that based on that information, that the DEC chose to recognize it as not a functioning wetland and hence did not request any mitigation associated with that particular area. So that's the one. There's a one longer document about the delineation, and then there's a summary report in there about wetland function and values, which also gives some additional information about the 3 wetlands and some of the conditions at the site that are related to the wetlands themselves.
Okay. And that was those both items, or that was just the first item?
That was the first item. The second item was in relation to the requested wetland flagging.
Yes.
It was asked that we reflag those. We have not been able to accomplish that yet. One of the questions that we had is, what is the preferred timing for that to occur? Is that something you want to occur prior to issuance of the permit, or is it something that you want to occur just prior to construction when activities would be occurring at the site, which may be probably a year to a year and a half from now in terms of when they would actively be working on the site?
We can make that a condition of the permit, meaning we can grant the permit under the condition that it is reflagged and that you've submitted in writing, like it's been reflagged, in which case then you can pick up your permit. So there can be a very little gap in time between you flagging and getting that. However, I believe that we will need it will be conditional upon reflagging.
Very good, thank you.
Prior to construction, yeah.
But preferred to be closer to construction?
Close, it would be. yeah.
It would be closer
Yeah.
to
A year
construction.
and a half out, you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So beyond that, the other questions that the board had, I think we were able to respond to them in our memorandum. There was a question about the size of the wetland area that was in question. We noted that it's in the area of 2,500 square feet. There was a request to include Town of Carmel wetland markers. We are going to add that to our plans. We'll have those at every 100 feet as requested, alongside both wetland 2 and wetland 3. So that'll be present. There was some questions regarding the number of, the trees to be cut and the trees to be replaced. So we did, in the memorandum, make note of the plantings that are going to be there. And then, Paul, I think there is I think it might be 2 or 3 drawings down. It's also, I believe, in the packet here that shows, yeah, thank you, it looks like you have it. One more, I think. But it shows the plantings, how many, and the type and species that will be added in those locations. So that, I guess, in response there, to the number of trees to be planted. We did take the board's question or recommendation to consider additional plantings within the site. The concern with that and the ability to do that is that the areas where we are actually removing trees are because of a regulation, essentially. In order to, one of the regulations for the dam is to have at least 20 feet clear space between the edge or groin of the dam to wherever trees or other vegetation are, other than grass. So that's why we're clearing in those areas. And then the clearing that's going to occur near the toe of the slope is because of the added fill. So again, it's only the trees that need to be removed specifically for that work in placing the fill on the dam. And then the last area where we're clearing trees is at the site entrance, and that's the area where we're replacing back trees into that area. So, and then within the other site, rest of the site is open. The only other open areas, there's a septic leach field area, so that wouldn't be suitable for planting. And then really the only other open area is the access road coming in and a turnaround area. Beyond that, it's just the open space of the dam itself.
Got it.
So I guess in summary, there's not necessarily an opportunity within any of the created clear space or the existing clear space to add, more trees to place back in, other than at the site entrance where we're clearing.
Got it. Okay, so I have a couple of comments on this, but do either of you two have any comments on this before I?
No, not right now.
All right, one of the interesting stipulation I have, which is Town of Carmel, the Town of Carmel code doesn't have a lot of, well, let me rephrase that. It actually has quite a lot of delineation of what type of wetlands we have in the town. All wetlands, water bodies, and water courses. And unfortunately, that means also man-made ones or unman-made ones. I've heard and seen situations where foundations that have been filled in with water then get flagged as wetlands by other agencies. Notably, the DEC has happened before in towns neighboring to ours. Considering that you're removing, I wrote down how many trees you were removing previously. Where's my notes?
I believe it was 78,
Right.
possibly.
78 trees were being removed. Not a question about that they shouldn't be removed, right? Because of dam safety and all of that, of course. But 78 of trees are being removed. We have 19 plus 2, I think it was. 19 plus 2, so another 21 trees being replanted, and a not insubstantial water retention, be it intentional or not. It's been there for years. And not a lot of mitigation factors that are being proposed. In fact, the only thing that I've heard so far was the replanting of 19 trees and the inability on this site, specifically within the confines of this dam itself, to plant new ones. I am totally open to other options for mitigation, meaning outside of this site, around the reservoir itself. There's plenty of property that is around. We've had applicants go outside of even just a natural style of mitigation for removing, in this case, a small water body or taking down trees, such as providing some sort of donation to a town environmental fund, or providing that for notices or learning opportunities, training, education, things like that. There's been a lot of options in the past for this kind of stuff. And we generally ask contractors and have a requirement in our code that if you are removing anything that is considered a wetland in the town, there's a 2-for-1 square footage replacement. Not necessarily, we have the board has the ability to make changes to that itself, has the ability to change. And in this case, I understand the need of this being, like, clearly we don't want erosion on our dam. Clearly we don't want trees to be compromising any integrity. Understood on there, but I am looking for personally something to allow for the mitigation of the fact that we're losing a whole bunch of trees, we're losing a water body that is there.
I just want to add, is the fire retention pond acceptable that we're installing at the water dam? We're adding a fire retention pond at the bottom.
How big is that pond?
The bioretention pond is slightly smaller than the one that's there. It's about 2,000 square feet.
That's right.
This area here.
It's slightly smaller, but it's, you said it's how many square feet?
It's approximately 2,000 square feet. It is slightly smaller than the square footage of the existing.
One that's being removed?
Correct.
Got it. And that bioretention pond, there's nothing there currently. It's not like you're
Right,
taking an existing thing.
it's just upland grass area that right now, currently. So the existing access road comes in here. This area, right now is just a grass-covered, open area. I guess essentially that's one of the few open areas that's existing there, and that's where we're utilizing to place that bioretention feature. Which will also have some plantings. I think there's 2 trees that are going back in there, plus a lot of shrubs and whatnot. We're not allowed to put trees directly in the bioretention feature itself because it'll affect its function. But that area will be established as for that purpose in that location.
And if I may, on the wetland, could you maybe explain that wetland we're talking about? That was very shallow.
Right, the shallow, where it's just a very shallow cover of soil that I think is probably washed down the slope and whatnot over time, over top of that stone fill or stone support that's at the base of the dam.
Do you know what kind of stone was down there? Was it riprap? Was it?
It's essentially riprap. I think in there some photos of the area. And in those photos, you can see some of the stone that's a little bit further up on the toe of the slope itself.
Do either of you have any
specific
comments
photo.
on this? I've said my opinion on the situation with regards to any sort of mitigation that we're looking for. It's been proposed that the bioretention pond constitutes that. What are your thoughts?
I think it represents some mitigation in terms of the offset of the waterway that's being removed, or the body of water that you're removing.
Ed?
I don't know.
No, I think that what they're doing is adequate for that.
Adequate?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I agree. I didn't realize, the bioretention pond, you're adding water, water, I don't want to call it a water feature.
Right.
But I get the
Point
situation. Yes.
Right. And just for reference, in photo 4, that's in the, this is in the wetland delineation memorandum. There's which is in Appendix B, photo 4. You can see a portion of the stone riprap just behind the growth area of where that water body is, where the wetland basin is that's in question. Maybe. this photo here. So this is the area where the basin is.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the stone riprap that's behind it,
Just
that
above, yeah.
extends down underneath of it. But-
Got it.
But that stone runs along the full length of it. It's like a riprap placed into the,
On the, I believe, southern side, on the southern side here, what, is that just dirt piled up there, like a swale kind of, like, what is the rest of that?
so the creation or how this area became the way it is now as far as retaining some water there, back in about 2003, DEP had a different project where they did some work in and around, I think actually they worked on the septic field and some other things on the site of the dam itself. And when they did so, they placed a gravel temporary access road essentially, which is retained by some stone gabion baskets, which had the effect of ponding some water, basically at the toe of the slope as it washes down. So that's how the water came to be perched there essentially. And then hence with some buildup over time of some soils and whatnot, it started to gather vegetation growth and whatnot.
Okay.
But that's how that feature came to be, starting in about 2003.
Understood. Any other comments from the board?
No, I have no more comments.
All right. I believe this is for submission of it. So, the SWIP has to be, reviewed by the town engineer. But that can happen after we accept the application. So like the process is, we accept the application is complete, it goes on a 30-day notice clock. We advertise in the newspaper. If anybody has any comments, they provide in that time period. After the 30 days, we come back. If there's been no comments and no changes to the plan and the application, then we grant the permit with conditions if there's necessary conditions. Any other comments from the board? Good?
No.
All right. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion for accepting the application from the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, West Branch Auxiliary Dam, 34 Drewville Road, as complete.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so you are on the 30-day clock. Please make sure you just let Rose know to get the SWIP to the town engineer for his approval on it. And I believe that's, if you, yeah, I think that was it. That's the only thing that you need to do in the meantime. And we'll have it advertised in the newspaper. I think that goes out on Tuesday.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Of course, and thank you for bringing up the bioretention pond. Two down. All right. Next up, we have Brian Kilmer, 156 Crane Road, tax map 54.14-1-37, installing a 1,020 square foot slab for a carport. Please come on up and state your name.
Yes, how you doing? My name's Brian Kilmer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so we received your application. And you are currently asking for, let me pass this out. You're currently asking for a letter of permission, if I'm not mistaken, is that right?
Yes.
So why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of the project narrative, the current site conditions, that kind of thing.
So right now in front of my house, if you look on the survey says that it's wetlands. But I went to engineering department and spoke with Rich, and we looked over the state grid and the Carmel grid and everything like that, and it shows no wetlands in the area, except for 2 houses down where the guy had made his own pond. And that's considered wet, that's his wetlands, and mine is, if you go there and take a look at it, it's dry. Rich said if you guys want, you can give him a call. But we did go over the grid and everything like that, and he said there's no wetlands there. They said that I should probably get a new survey done, just because of that problem. And if you look at whatever it is, the Google map or whatever that he showed me, You can see it's all dry. And I just want to be able to put a slab in there and put a carport just to get my stuff off the property,
Got it.
so I can hide it.
All right, so, I did actually have a chance to talk with, Rich Franzetti about this, this very application. I have a couple of recommendations for you. So, under normal circumstances, let's assume for a second that this survey is correct, just for a second. We'll
Okay.
come back to the fact that it's probably not correct at this point. I did my own looking at Google Earth, I did as well. If that was indeed correct, where you're proposing to put it is in the smack dab in the middle of where the wetland would traditionally be.
Yes.
In which case, this would be a much larger application and a larger process to go through. Namely, we have, as you heard before, we have this rule about if you remove a square foot of wetland, you have to find
Yes.
two somewhere else on your
Yes.
property, or some sort of mitigation for it. However, there is, as I looked myself, there's a few ways that we can that I believe that we can go about handling this. I personally do not have a problem with handling this as a letter of permission if we have confirmation from our wetlands inspector, who is also town engineer, Rich Vansetti.
Yes.
We'd get a confirmation from him, sent to our board in memo indicating that there is no wetland either on the property or within 100 feet of where you're proposing to do this, because in that case, that removes our jurisdiction from it, and
Okay.
I'd be happy to not even have to grant you anything.
Okay.
Should there be found a wetland on your property or within 100 feet of this, that's really the case. If it's within 100 feet of where you're proposing to do this, then you still do need to come before us. However, if you're not building in the wetlands, you still may be able to get just a letter of permission on this.
Okay.
I do not believe that we will be able to accept or grant a letter of permission this evening, fortunately, without that confirmation. And so, as I mentioned, I did speak with Rich, and we'll formally ask him to take a site visit in the next couple of days, if he can, and provide the conditions of the property. Let us know, is any of the proposed actions that you're going to take here near a wetland at all?
Okay.
And if his answer is no, and we have that in writing and put that in the file, I don't think there will be any problem.
Okay.
Does anybody on the board have any concerns about that itself?
No, no question.
Also, I just wanted to point out that there is an existing 6-inch drain on the back side of the property. So if I did have to do anything with the water, everything goes that way and goes around the back of the property and out the back. I don't know if it matters or not.
Okay, so just as since you're here and we can ask some questions, just to make sure, in case you do need to come back before us, there's a few things that I did have some questions on as well.
Okay.
So with regards to the site plan that you provided here, I definitely agree with Rich. If you get a new site survey, that would be fantastic. For your own records, you can even take a look, because there's definitely, looking on Google Earth, right, or Google Streets, whatever it is,
Yes.
overtop view, there's definitely some structures in the backyard as well, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. There's a pool, and that's not
Yes.
reflected on the map. There is also, I didn't see it in here, but perhaps you did install gravel. All right, you place installing the silt fence, place 6 inches, 6
6 inches of 2-inch gravel.
2-inch gravel,
Yeah.
compact frame out subflooring slab, concrete truck comes in. Yep. There would not be any, would you need to be doing any concrete mixing on site as well, even after the concrete
No.
truck comes in?
Nope.
You're not doing any hand mixing or anything like
Nope.
that? All right, so then you wouldn't need a clean out area. You currently also are gonna be required for this project includes building the carport, correct?
Yes.
So you will need a building permit? Have you already started that process?
Yes, I have the paperwork and everything like that ready to go, but they said that I should take care of this first before I even try to go in for the building permit, to
Understood,
make sure I'm able to do it.
understood, all right. So as I suggested, one of two things will happen once Rich goes out there. Either he goes out there and says there's 0 wetlands within 100 feet of this, in which case you're fully out of our jurisdiction.
Okay.
Or if there are wetlands within 100 feet of the proposed area where you're building this, then you will still need to come before us. I believe the application that you provided here is generally suitable. I didn't see anything that was really missing. Are you gonna be doing any grading for this?
Nope. It's pretty much already set. Once the gravel goes in, that would be leveled out.
Okay,
And then once the concrete pad is poured, I would, backfill around the concrete edge, that's it, with the fill that's in place already.
got it. Are you bringing in any additional, are you gonna be either removing any of the grade from the site, like off-site?
Nope.
Are you gonna be pushing it back into the rest of the site if you do have any extra?
It's pretty much just gonna be graded out
Okay.
around the concrete pad itself, just to bring it up to grade.
Okay. No heavy machinery, so you're not doing any skid steers or anything like that?
All hand.
All over hand. Does anybody have any other questions on this?
No.
All right, pretty straightforward. Water, I did actually want to ask that as well. So I noticed that there were 2 different styles of carport that you were considering, regular and A-frame. Not that it makes a huge difference to our board on this, but the water that will be coming off of the slab and off of the carport itself, you started mentioning that. Where does that divert to, or is that just going to be going to grade?
Well, I was just gonna let it go to grade. I was gonna have gravel around the edges and let it go to that. And then if I needed to, put pretty much gravel to where that 6-inch pipe goes.
Got it.
So this way, everything will just flow that way and it'll go naturally out the back.
Perfect. So if there is a wetland around there, that will probably be your best option.
Okay.
If there is no wetland and you don't need to come before us, it is on you to figure out what you would like to do with that water.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
Good, good. All right, so we will table this application for now, and hopefully we don't see you back in 2 weeks, but if we do, we'll try to make it real quick.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You as well. Sorry you had to sit through both a public hearing and New York City, and, damn. Those are longer ones, and we don't get too many of them. We got hit twice in one night.
It's all good. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great night.
You too, have a good night.
And just for the record as well, the deed was in the file. It's fine. Thank you, thank you. Oh wait, that was mine. That's mine now. Last item on the agenda is minutes, which we do not have a quorum for because I was not here. So with that, do I have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a great night, everyone.